This is Seahawks Today. I am your host, Will Ortner, and we're going to talk about two of the recent Seahawks hirings that they made for this coaching staff and why I think the Seahawks are getting away with some highway robbery on today's show. Because I'll tell you right now, there are two hirings. One that's obviously big, it's prominent. Everyone knows the OC hiring by now and Brian Fleury and how important he is going to be to the success of the Seahawks. But I think that there's another coach hiring that we're not really talking about that I think the Seahawks really hit a home run with. Before we get into any of that, though, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. We've got you covered on any breaking Seahawks news or rumors throughout the 2026 NFL offseason. We're getting really close to the combine. Free agency's getting underway here soon. Then, of course, the draft. And then all of a sudden you blink your eyes and the Seahawks are playing in the regular season again. We're going to have you covered every single day on anything going on with the Seahawks, so make sure that you go in and hit that sub button. The first coach that I want to talk about when it comes to the most recent hirings is Daniel Stern. Now, I think that this is a hiring that kind of went under the radar for a lot of casual fans or a lot of fans that don't really understand how important some of the analysts are into today's game of football. In fact, when you look at a guy like head coach Mike Macdonald, or you can look in Chicago at Ben Johnson, there are more and more coaches now that have this background either in finance or in tech that are like real geniuses, not just football geniuses, but geniuses when it comes to how well they can work through problems and how quickly they can problem solve. Daniel Stern is one of those types of guys. He spent the last 10 years in Baltimore. He was the director of football strategy / the assistant quarterback coach. And so I think there's initial inclination from some people where they go, all right, okay, cool. Like, you got an assistant quarterback coach. Like, Lamar was great, but like, that's not that big of a deal. Andrew Janocko, he moves on. He's going to be the offense coordinator of the Las Vegas Raiders. Stern will just dive into that QB spot. And this is actually where I think it is a much bigger deal than people realize. Because a guy like Daniel Stern comes from the Harbaugh coaching tree. When you come from the Harbaugh coaching tree, just like head coach Mike Macdonald, there is a certain level of success that you have become accustomed to. The Harbaughs win, right? When you look at how well John has done in Baltimore and how well I believe he will do in New York, and when you look at Jim, everywhere that man goes, he wins. It doesn't matter if it's at the college level or if it's at the NFL level, they both find ways to win. So when you look at a guy that has a high respect from a guy like John Harbaugh, when you have a guy in Daniel Stern that coached with Mike Macdonald, has shown Mike Macdonald the type of coach that he can be, I think that's always going to be an important hiring, especially for a guy that if he wanted to, he could have stayed in Baltimore. Or if he wanted to, he could go to New York with John Harbaugh. He was a highly sought after guy and a guy that behind the scenes is going to make a big deal for whatever team he is coaching for. He's someone that we might not necessarily, day to day, play to play, go, that guy was the one who made that impact there, but he's the type of guy that can be around for quite some time. Now, obviously, he coached with head coach Mike Macdonald for quite some time. Of course, Macdonald bouncing around a little bit over there in Baltimore on a couple of different stints, so that does make a lot of sense. It does sound like he's going to become the Seahawks pass game strategist. Don't be shocked also if he ends up coaching QBs, taking over in that Andrew Janocko role. What I think is important with a guy like Daniel Stern, the more and more that I hear clips of him on Twitter, the more and more that I hear him talk, I listen and I figure one thing about this man, and I figured it out. He is detail-oriented. He is a man that doesn't leave any stone unturned. He is a man that when he makes a mistake, he owns it. He is a man that when he has a player making a mistake, he calls them out on it. He is the type of man that is going to create a strategy while also getting respect from his players. He is the type of coach that players want to play for because they know that when they need to be held accountable, they will be. But more importantly, they are going to be coached to the utmost of that coach's ability. He's going to make it clear and concise what is expected of those players, and those players are going to understand exactly what their role is. Seattle has had a lot of success specifically on the defensive end because that is exactly the same thing that Mike Macdonald does. Think about it. When you hear the players, Devin Witherspoon, Reek Woolen, Ernest Jones, Leonard Williams, DeMarcus Lawrence, the list goes on. When you hear those players talk about Mike Macdonald, what do they always talk about? They always talk about that, one, he's a genius and he creates systems and schemes and play designs that free them up and allow them to have as much success as possible. But more importantly, they know exactly what their job is. Every single minute that they are out on the field, the minute that a play is called, they know what they're doing. You can say a lot of great things about Pete Carroll. And I think that Pete was fantastic when he was here. But there was a little bit of a freedom and ad-libability, right? And while there was some success with that, clearly Richard Sherman is the highest degree of that, right? That guy sometimes would just see what the offense was going to do and he was going to go make a play. What Mike Macdonald does is, this is what your job is, and I expect you to do your job at 110%. And I think that that is a fantastic and admirable quality. So now you're going to get a guy in Daniel Stern who is clearly not afraid to work, who clearly has a level of respect around the National Football League, so much so that one of his former co-coaches or coaches that he coached with, Mike Macdonald, went out and made sure that he brought him into Seattle with him. But most importantly, he gets the way that Macdonald wants to coach. He is detail-oriented. There is no stone left unturned, and the players that are around him are going to know exactly what their job is. There is no question about what the players need to do that are being coached by Daniel Stern. And if that's the case, I think that you're going to see Sam Darnold take another step forward next year. If he is out there helping design the passing game, which it does look like Stern will be doing, you are going to have a coach that is making sure that Sam Darnold knows every little detail about what is going to be coming for him. And that means that Sam Darnold will be able to make decisions faster. If he's able to make decisions faster, he's going to find open receivers faster. He finds open receivers faster, we have make more big plays, we score more touchdowns, we win more games, and then, well, hey, maybe we have a repeat. So when I look at a guy like Daniel Stern, he is 100% a highway robbery that Seattle came out and got, because they grabbed a guy that nobody else or very few other people were willing to pay the amount that he needs to be, right? Or put him in a position and a promotion that he deserves. So I'm pretty dang excited about Seattle going and get Daniel Stern. Let me know what your one-word reaction to the latest Seahawks coach hirings down below in the comments section. I'll say right now, the more and more that I hear about it, the more and more I am fired up. That's 2 words. We're going to go with excited. The more and more that I hear about the coaching hirings, the more and more I hear about players talk about them, the more and more I hear about other coaches talk about them, the more and more excited I am about them. By the way, in the comment section, we're going to have the link to our Champions merch, the Mob. We've got, of course, the normal, where you got the head honcho, you got the main star, as well as the mascot gear. We're going to have that in the comment section and description of today's video. In fact, it'll be the pinned comment. So go in, click that link, and go grab yourself some sick gear, because I'll tell you right now, there have been a lot of people letting me know that the Mob mentality is freaking sweet. We've got it in black and navy, and it's some of the most comfortable clothes that you can go and grab. So make sure that you go grab yourself some today. The next coach we're going to talk about is Brian Fleury, and he is going to come in and be the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. Now, I don't think that I am that far out on a limb when I say that no one really saw this coming. In fact, I kind of feel like an idiot. When that coach hiring or coach interview process came out, I went, that's kind of surprising. We'll see what happens. Seahawks clearly gathering intel. And I do think that the Seahawks were going into this gathering intel, but it also made sense to interview Flurry because, well, he comes from the Kyle Shanahan tree, just like Clint Kubiak. So they run a similar outside zone scheme. But I think what is most important here is you have a guy in Brian Fleury who was not supposed to get this job. He wasn't. Remember, Seahawks were looking for someone to have continuity of the offense that they were creating, and they were looking, honestly, at someone in-house. So what you're telling me is that a guy who was not on the radar came in and won the job in his interview. Well, that makes me pretty darn excited. And I know that there are going to be some people that say, well, he hasn't called plays before yet. Like, what do we think about this guy? He's coming from an offense that maybe didn't have the best year last year. I'll tell you right now, that offense might not have had the best year. That had nothing to do with Brian Fleury. The amount of injuries that they had is astronomical. And at the same time, CMC still had 2,100 total yards from the line of scrimmage. So he was running the football pretty darn well, which is what Brian Fleury was in charge of, while also at the same time catching the ball well out of the backfield, which of course Brian Fleury is a part of that scheme and a part of setting up that system. So you're getting the continuity that you wanted when it comes to the Seahawks offensive style or offensive scheme that Kubiak had, that Shanahan had, that now Fleury's going to continue. But you're also getting a guy who came in and won the job. You're getting a guy who was not handed this job. This is a guy who earned it, who went in and had a conversation with different people in the front office, with the head coach, Mike Macdonald, with John Schneider, and he impressed them so much that they said, yes, it's you. It's your job. We are going to give it to you. Now, there are a lot of people in the National Football League that might not have been expecting this hiring. I wasn't expecting this hiring. But I think that Mike Macdonald, and I said this in the initial video, has earned some cachet with us. When Macdonald has gone out and made hirings, they've been successful. Even the Ryan Grubb hiring, which I think a lot of us are glad that he wasn't the OC this past year, it was successful. 10 wins. If you're going to come in here and tell me that 10 wins isn't a successful season, then I don't know what your bar is. Because Seattle had a 10-win season with a coach that they said, we cannot have him here anymore. So when you look at the least successful hiring that Mike Macdonald has had, you still won 10 games with an offense that performed pretty darn well. Just look at what Geno Smith did this last year in Las Vegas, and also look at what DK Metcalf did in Pittsburgh. So you're looking at a coach who has clearly shown that he knows how to go out and make big hirings. Clint Kubiak was not someone that everyone was like, yeah, home run hire for the Seahawks. He became a home run hire. So I'm not worried about Brian Fleury not being a home run hire. I look also at the players that he just coached. Well, he's a tight end coach with the San Francisco 49ers, along with being a run game coordinator. George Kittle is a tight end, a probable Hall of Fame tight end in the National Football League. And as soon as that went out, he said that he was bummed out, right? He had a tweet somewhere on social media, something along the lines of sad or disappointed, right? So if you're telling me that a future NFL Hall of Famer is upset that his coach is now leaving him, I'd feel pretty darn fired up about it. Now, I understand that he did not create Flurry, did not create Kittle, right? Kittle was well established by the time that Flurry got there. It's still important to know that he continued to build on the successes of him, as well as Jake Tonjes had a good year this year where Kittle missed a lot of time due to injury. I think that's very important to note because you could just rest on your laurels and say, well, hey, these are the numbers that I got with a future Hall of Fame tight end. But you can also say that Fleury kind of created another above average NFL tight end in a guy in Jake Tonjes. The other thing that I think is important to note here, and I think this is the part that not enough people are talking about, is with Fleury, he's a tight end coach. What do tight ends have to do? Well, tight ends have to be very locked in on the passing game because, well, they run routes. They have to be very locked in on everything that is happening with the passing trees and with the passing game and the passing strategy. So Fleury has to be very hands-on in that. While also at the same time, tight ends, they're very locked in on the run game. They're very aware of everything that is happening to try and spring open long runs for the rushing attack. Fleury not only was the run game coordinator, but he's in there with the tight ends every single day, making sure they're doing their job. In an offense in San Francisco that very much utilizes the tight ends in the run game. So I think it's important to kind of mention him because he is going to be able to understand where a lot of the offensive line is coming from in a lot of these situations. So Fleury all of a sudden just becomes a much bigger deal because it's not like you're hiring someone that's locked in on the pass game and then has a good knowledge of the run game but needs to be expanded upon it. You're not hiring a guy that is locked in on the run game and has a good knowledge of the passing game but needs to be expanded upon it. You're hiring a guy that has to be locked in on both of those things because the position group that he coached necessitated it. So all of a sudden that becomes a much bigger deal. The last thing that I think is important to mention too with this team, of course, is that it does sound like Seattle's going to be able to keep John Benton, your O-line coach, Justin Otten, your run game coordinator, and Jake Peets, your passing game coordinator. So you are going to be able to keep 3 key coaches on this staff to continue the success that you had last season. To me, it's a home run hire because the Seahawks were able to keep the staff together while also at the same time find a way to get someone who can keep pushing this offense forward while still building upon the successes that they had the last season. That's just a home run hire to me. And it's the Seahawks getting away with robbery because they grabbed 2 guys that no one really thought was going to get the jobs that they did. And now they're in Seattle. And I think the Seahawks are going to be very dang dangerous. Did the Seahawks hire the right offensive coordinator? Let me know down below in the comment section, yes or no. And if you say no, don't be afraid. Tell me who you think it should have been or why you are nervous about it, because I do understand your thoughts, your feelings, and your reasonings. Because, look, I'm not perfect. Sometimes I have my mistakes. But I'll tell you right now, the more and more that I read up on these two coaches, the more and more I think the Seahawks just stole two big coaches to make this team really go. Thank you guys so much for viewing today's video. Of course, we always really appreciate it. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week, and I cannot wait to see you guys next time.